everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm DJ Larkin. I'm a lawyer with Pivot Legal Society, and we're here today to talk about the evictions that are ongoing at the York Rooms Hotel, the hotel right across the street from us here. This morning you'll be hearing from Wendy Pedersen. She'll be telling you what's going on in the York Rooms. And Sherman has bravely agreed to speak to you as well about his experience as a resident there. And then I'll be speaking to you about the human rights implications and the need for the city to step in and protect this low-income housing. Wendy? Okay. Hey, Downtown Eastside residents. Just gotta collect myself because I feel like I'm gonna cry, actually. Mostly because I'm really frustrated. Okay, so in the last month, I've spent time with 7 residents of the York Hotel who've been evicted from this premise. And I've also door knocked in this hotel, and it appears to me that many of the rooms are empty. One of the residents who was evicted counted 20 rooms empty. Another resident counted only 5, so we're getting different stories about how many rooms that are evicted or that are empty. So the York Hotel has a fancy new website, and they're advertising the new housing here as artistic character units for people who live outside of this neighborhood, who can afford to pay rents in the range of $525 to $600 a month. People in this neighborhood cannot afford that. The majority of residents in this neighborhood have $375 a month to spend on rent, and they have a hard time finding other places to live. We're in a housing crisis. Plus, people don't want to rent to people on welfare. So people have no place to go. And what does the harassment and the intimidation look like in the York Hotel? Well, this is the stuff that I've heard from residents. There are cameras pointed at people's doors. If you lose your key, your fob, you have to pay $50 to replace that key. If you're on welfare, there's no chance that you'll be able to replace that key. So then you have to rely on others to open your own door for you. Some days they tell you guests are okay, some days not. Some days they tell you the door can be open in your room, out into the hallway, other days not. You get followed to the bathroom by the managers. They're worried about residents using too much toilet paper. Dang. Like, that's the kind of harassment that people feel. Residents call the managers, Dave and Monica, because they're young, they call them the Nazi child. That's their euphemism for the managers at this place.
Sorry, what did they call them?
The Nazi child. As the manager, Dave, because he's a young 25, 30-year-old hipster who is totally controlling. So he also gives people verbal warnings about evictions, so people are constantly feeling like they're walking on eggshells around him. And the managers have offered and have paid out, bribed people to not fight their eviction, and I've heard personal testimonies to that effect. So, you know, this isn't unusual. The owner of this building, Stephen Littman, is a notorious reno-victor in this neighborhood. So I had a little moment this morning where I was feeling so discouraged because back in 2007, I did my first press conference in front of the Golden Crown Hotel, right across the street from a development that wasn't even approved yet, the Woodwards building. Because Stephen Littman bought that building and he was going to raise the rents. And right now, guess what the rents are in that place? They're $625 to $875 a month. That's outrageous. So I feel hopeless. Is the city actually going to do anything? Like, this is 6 years later. This is the systematic evacuation of low-income people from our neighborhood. It's happening now, and we're tired of it, and it needs to stop. Hear, hear! Yeah. Oh. So last year alone, 426 rooms in this neighborhood became unaffordable to the majority of people in this neighborhood. Our homes are disappearing. There's 7,000 people that live on welfare and disability in this community. There's 3,000 people on old age pension. Where are they going to go? You'll hear spin from the city of Vancouver, because that's what they do. They spin because they don't want to deal with this problem, because they have another plan for this neighborhood. Councillor Kerry Jang from Vision Vancouver, he's been quoted in the newspaper saying that that not a single person has been displaced from this community, and that is a lie. That is such a lie. And just finally, the business partner of Stephen Littman is here right now. And when we first started, picketing in front here, Stephen, this business partner, told Dave and I that we should be grateful that they're cleaning up the neighborhood. Well, we're not grateful. You should not be doing this. And we want you to be stopped by the city of Vancouver. Oh! Okay, you know what? This isn't your press conference, so people can go talk to you later. But, DJ?
Yeah, I'm Sherman VanderBos. I'm a tenant here. I've been a tenant for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And I just don't know what's going to happen. The waiting list for BC housing is like 7 years. So we're kind of forced to stay in these places, and I don't know where else to go. There's no place available to rent, and even if there are, the rent's so high that there's no way I can afford it. So I just gotta say, I have no idea where I'm gonna go next. If I do get evicted, I don't know. I don't even stay here that often. It's just too stressful. Just too many headaches. I see other people getting evicted. There's another one the other day, a couple days ago. Got evicted for fighting or something. I think they were out within like 12 hours, 24 hours. So, yeah, it's happening not only here but everywhere. It could be your hotel next. It could be anyone's hotel. It's not gonna slow down. It's just gonna speed up, and it's gonna get worse for sure. That's what I gotta say.
What is happening to the residents of the York Room is a matter of basic human rights. It is a violation of the fundamental human rights of low-income residents in this neighborhood. You cannot pay people a meager, tiny amount of money to convince them to move out to the street, to move them into homelessness because they don't have other options. You cannot change the rules every day. You cannot tell people, one more chance, I'm going to evict you. Don't leave your door open, I'm going to evict you. I'm going to follow you around, I'm going to evict you. You cannot do this to people. It is a violation of their rights. And it does raise a very serious concern that landlords in this neighborhood are blatantly discriminating against people based on their lawful source of income. That is something that is protected by the law in BC, and that is something that cannot be happening for the sake of profit. We also know that there is a crisis in this neighborhood. The Downtown Eastside is changing quickly, and as it changes, the City of Vancouver is not mediating between residents who have been here for a long time, low-income residents, and new moderate-income residents. They're abdicating their responsibility. It's causing tension, it's causing anger, it's causing distrust, and it will cause people to not believe in the plan for this area. It is a crisis, and something has to be done now. The city needs to step in now. This isn't the first hotel, and it won't be the last hotel. The city knows this is happening. They have known about these types of evictions in the past. We can talk about the plan for the next 10 years, but we cannot talk about that plan if people are being put to the street today. Today, the city needs to come and investigate what is happening. They need to protect people like Sherman who are scared. They need to protect low-income residents who are in this building who have the right to stay here. And they need to find the people who have been evicted or paid out to move out, and they need to find them safe housing. The city has an SRO task force. That task force is supposed to deal with issues up to and including protecting SROs as low-income housing stock designed specifically to protect people most at risk of homelessness. Now is the time to empower that SRO task force to actually investigate human rights violations like this. Make sure people aren't being pushed to the street. Make sure people aren't being bullied out. Make sure people aren't being illegally evicted. They need to step up. They need to take a strong stand right now, otherwise they will lose the faith of this community.
You're here.
The city has a bylaw that's supposed to protect against the conversion of SRO hotels like this. It's not working. Landlords and landowners and developers understand how to get around that bylaw. They understand how to do conversions so that they don't have to go to the city, they don't have to pay the city, they don't have to get a license to convert land like this in the way that they want to purely for profit. The city needs to amend that bylaw to say that this is low-income housing. They call SROs low-income housing. They count them when they say how many low-income housing units there are in the city. They need to protect them as low-income housing. They need to change that bylaw right now. It's the least they can do to get these owners to come to the table, admit that they are converting these units into market housing, and get them to, at very least, pay the city according to the bylaw for that conversion and for the profit that they are seeking to make off of these buildings. The city also needs to define what is low-income housing and what is social housing. Right now, they're asking people in this neighborhood to sign on to a plan for 10 years, up to 30 years, for how this city is going to develop in the Downtown Eastside. Unless people know what is going to be protected, unless people know what low-income housing is, know what social housing is, they will not sign on to that local area plan. They need to actually take a strong stand through the local area planning process to say, we are going to protect people like Sherman. He deserves a home. He can't be pushed out. The city says that it has very little jurisdiction to actually deal with these issues. They say it's not their fault. They say it's up to the province. To that I say, you need to take a stand. You need to show that you are pushing. It's only if the city starts pushing really hard and really publicly that the province will step in and do their part. And my question to the city is, if you don't have jurisdiction to define low-income housing, if you don't have jurisdiction to actually protect what you call low-income housing for people like Sherman, how are we supposed to have faith in your planning process? How are you supposed to protect low-income housing? The city needs to take a stand right now. They need to stop these people from being moved into homelessness.
Thank you.
DJ Larkin. Thank you. We'll take questions.
What would that stand look like?
Changing the bylaw right now so that the bylaw explicitly says that SROs are low-income housing and that low-income housing is housing for people who are not moderate income, not $800 rent, people on income assistance, disability, and pension. They need to empower their SRO task force to become an investigative force to ensure that these types of human rights violations are not occurring. And they need to come out very publicly and support people like Sherman and find them houses, find them homes.
Wendy already outlined the city's response is going to be to this. So what's Pivot's next move if they come back with the same response?
Well, we're already engaging with the city. We're already bringing them our legal perspective on what it is that they can do. And we're going to continue to push them. And if it comes right down to it, if this comes down to a matter of having to bring human rights complaint after human rights complaint based on lawful source of income, then that's what we'll do.
How much are residents getting paid out?
That's a good question. We've heard varying amounts, and perhaps I can actually ask Wendy to address that if she's here. Okay. We've heard anywhere between $400 and $2,000. Any other questions?
People who have been asked to move out, are they being given options of where else they could live?
No. No, they're just moving.
How many people? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
People are resourceful and they will do their best to find somewhere to go to, but they're not being offered that assistance unless they found an advocate in this neighborhood to help them out. But that is completely based on their own ability to survive.
Do you have anyone here at the press conference who's been asked to move out who could speak to their experience?
Unfortunately, everyone who's been asked to move out is so busy just trying to find themselves housing that we're losing track of people.
Have you met with any of
Yes.
them personally?
Yes.
Hers over there, he was paid out years ago. He knows who they were.
Yeah.
I can
How many people are currently living in it?
There's 36 rooms. We're not sure how many of them are vacant. It's hard to say at this point, but we've seen 7 people moved out in since the beginning of July. So, by my count, the hotel is probably, like Wendy said,
Never spoken to them about being evicted.
What
So,
are you doing with those empty rooms?
we're trying to rent them. We're desperately trying to rent them.
We're not going to get away with it.
In the last 3 months, because we had rampant drug dealing in the building itself. And if you look at the fact sheet that I'm handing out, you'll see we went to the residential tenancy branch because one of the tenants was openly selling drugs.
You have never
We've had
cared about
rampant drug dealing and sales in this property for the last 6 months. The police have supported us, the police have helped us. We won at the residential tenancy branch because the tenants said they were trying to sell cigarettes.
You care about
and they
money.
supported us, and if you know the residential tenancy branch,
Profit.
the onus of
That's your
responsibility
only
for
motive.
proof is on the landlord, and we won in that case, and we would never ever evict anybody or pay somebody to leave.
You have. That's your history.
That's
You
an
have.
assumption. The facts are there. There's
Look at
12
his
empty
history,
rooms.
Paul.
Why would you try to pay somebody to leave when you have an empty room? So we've owned it since 2011. Safe and secure accommodation is what we provide in all of our SROs. We put additional security in here. We put cameras. They're right. We put more cameras in the hallways
Even pointed
because
at
of the
people's
rampant
doors.
drug use and sales in this property.
You're not
And
the
the reason
police.
people are leaving this property
Managers
is
get
because
paid.
they don't want to live in an environment
That's not
where
true.
there's drug dealers
People
are
been
actually
evicted.
taking over the entire space, not evictions.
Yeah.
It's
Why
being
have eviction papers
repackaged
here?
because it doesn't suit the truth, but the facts are the facts that are on the sheet that I'm handing out, and I can speak to any of those facts.
You're
I'm
a
not going to speak
professional
to
renovator.
the.
A professional renovator.
Why
That's
would
what
we
he
ren-
is.
Why would we
That's
renovate
his
and why would we
They own
renovate people?
300 rooms in this
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Yes,
and
we
they've
do. We actually
all
have
been
400.
converted to rentals in the range of $525 to $875 or $900.
Simply not true. We don't have a single, we have 400 SROs. We don't have a
400?
single one that's more than 600. The vast majority are in the $400 range.
And he
Do you
lied to us on
charge
the first day that we came here. He said all his rents, almost all the rents were $375. We learned from the manager that that is not true.
The facts on the fact sheet that I just gave you, with
Google
the
the
range
York
from
Realm.
370
Beside the facts.
through.
The facts are the
I
facts.
pay $425,
Okay, you pay $425.
and I
you
get
see?
$375 a month from welfare.
Well, you're paying $425,
So I
and that's
gotta
what the
spend
majority
$50
of
out of my own
people
pocket.
in the building
But he was-
pay for safe, secure accommodation.
Sherman was here
You
for
charge
And we've had
$50
security
per
companies.
hour.
Are real
For 2 months we had security people overnight because we couldn't get a caretaker to actually live in the building because it wasn't safe. They were threatened by the drug dealers. I've got the facts supported by
No
the...
evictions.
We want kitchens, no evictions. We want kitchens, no evictions. We want kitchens, no evictions. We want kitchens, no evictions. We want kitchens, no evictions. We want kitchens, no evictions. No home, no peace. No peace. No home, no peace. No home, no peace. No home, no peace.
In the
No
building.
homes, no peace.
We
No homes, no peace. No homes, no peace. No homes, no peace. No homes, no peace. No homes, no peace.
We want facts, not lies.
Up to 600. There's one on, some on the back that have windows and views.
You want some
They're
other?
completely renovated.
You want some other people
Over
look
that
at
range, but the vast majority are all in the $400 to $500 range.
On the day of
My
our
name's Geoffrey
first press
Howes. I'm at the bottom
conference
of
at
the
the York
fact
Hotel 2 months ago, they took one guy out to the Save on Meats restaurant and they fed him dinner and they told him that he wasn't going to get evicted after all, that he didn't need to speak out at the press conference. And the day after the press conference, he was
we've gone through three caretakers since then. That particular gentleman, I can't speak on an individual case. He actually decided to move on because he found it too much of a challenge to be within the building, because he had his own personal issues to deal with as well.
That's not what I'm time.
Well, I could actually get him to actually speak to you if you really need that. Okay, so then just, you've got my contact information there.
Okay.
So maybe I'll give you my card.
Okay. Do you charge $50 when people lose their fob?
No, we don't. We've had major problems with access here. The problem with the access here and the code is that the drug dealers were just letting absolutely anybody and everybody in the building. And we're trying to control the entry to the building because we had 50 people wandering in and out at all hours of the day and night.
How's that different from other buildings in Vancouver?
How's it different?
How's it different from other buildings in Vancouver where people are wandering in and out all hours of the night?
If you have, at 4 o'clock in the morning when you have 4 people waiting to go into a particular suite to buy something, that's how it's different.
This
He's dodging the issue. He's dodging the issue.
What about the houses?
We're not in the business of lying.
So you've got 12 rooms here.
He says that as he lies to your face.
Because people don't want to live here amongst all of the drug dealing and the illegal activity that's going on in this neighborhood.
We're not talking about drug dealing at this press conference. We're talking about illegal rent evictions. Do not dodge the issue.
First of all,
do not dodge the issue. Do not dodge the issue.
Do not dodge the issue.
We put sort of, when somebody moves out, we actually put in, if it needs cleaning, a lot of the tenants when they move out, they create holes in the walls, there's problems, we go in, we repair the rooms, we put in a vanity, we repaint them, and then we re-rent them. So the reality here is that people are moving out. People are moving out.
I'm just thinking that the affordable housing society further down the road, you've got like if a room becomes vacant, they repair that one room, someone moves in. You've got 12 vacant rooms at one time.
People don't want to move into the building with the rampant drug use.
That means that you're a bad manager.
That's the reality.
Why would people be saying that they're being offered?
He's still dodging the issue. He didn't answer your question.
I don't know why they would say that. I don't know who's saying it, because it simply is not true. Why would you offer somebody money to leave when you have 12 empty suites? We have 12 empty suites that we want to rent, and any other people here that want to apply and come to rent those rooms, they can.
Well, you just said that you're having trouble selling the room because of undesirable people, so offering
Well,
money.
fortunately, as you read from the back page of that fact sheet, we just won a huge victory at the residential tenancy branch, and we've been able to evict the principal drug dealer in this building that we've been trying to evict or trying to find a way to get the person to leave for the last year.
Okay, fair enough. So you're talking about the drugs, but what about those 12 vacant rooms? How much are the 12 vacant rooms? If you're going to rent those rooms, how much are we looking at?
We rent them at various ranges depending on the room.
I mean, if I want to move in
Anywhere
tomorrow,
from $400 to $600 a room. They're not necessarily rented at welfare rates. There is no requirement to rent them at welfare rates.
you don't feel you have a responsibility to the tenants who are currently in the building to, think about their welfare?
We have a responsibility to keep them safe and secure, and that is what we do every day. That's why we put a window in the door so we can see people coming and going. We have additional camera systems in there, and we care about all of our tenants, every single one, in every single building we have.
One that
Yeah, right. And all the heckling in the world won't change the facts.
Why don't you just leave our community, motherfucker?
The facts don't suit the argument. That's the problem. And the reality is not the perception that's being put out there by these individuals. And I'll talk to anybody offline when I'm not being called bad language in the back by this gentleman and others, because this is simply not true.
Because they don't even follow their own regulations.
Why would you be sick when we're providing buildings?
You're not providing nothing.
Taking buildings! You're not providing them! I've been on the street with a baby, for Christ's sake! You are not providing buildings, you are stealing them!
I am not
Stop
the
it!
City of Vancouver. Talk to the City of Vancouver. Around this, we are free enterprise. We bought these buildings. When we bought these buildings, this was the #1 building. anybody wants to talk to me
Fuck you.
offline,
I want to talk to you. Fuck you.
I can appreciate your frustration, and I'm sorry.
Oh, sure you
Yeah.
can.
You're fucking people with fucking, I'm shelters, right? You're leaving people like that with no fucking homes, right? And when you're supposed to be doing your job? Fuck you!
He hasn't got a job. He's a thief.
Yeah, he's a fucking thief. He's a goof. No peace.
So,
No home.
Maximizing profit.
No home. No peace. Try to explain your way out of this, you fucking piece of shit.
Where's your conscience?
Get your own press conference. Get out of here.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of the scene, dude. We don't want you here.
Out! Out! Out with the evictors! Out! Out! Out with the evictors! Out! Out! Out with the evictors!
I've seen that type of
These places, they're turning
I
them
do
into
not
jails,
want
you
to
know
live
that.
in my
They're
home.
turning them into minimum security jails. That's why he's got the gauleiter at the door.
Reasonable price?
You're maximizing profit. That is your bottom line, and that is what you are doing. You are evicting people to maximize profit.
These people on the streets that have children, right? I ain't joking.
The press conference with Pivot just ended about the evictions at the York, and it really erupted during the press conference because the owner's representative, Stephen Littman's business partner, showed up at the press conference with his own media releases.
All the kind of mainstream press rushed over to him.
Basically called everybody liars.
This person completely sidestepped the issue. Anytime we tried to talk about evictions and raised rents, the only thing he would repeat was there used to be drug dealers here, there isn't anymore. People left of their own accord.
So the crowd exploded. We all shouted and chanted him down.
And we would try to approach the issue of the evictions again, and he would say there used to be drug dealers here, people left by themselves. We never offered anybody any money. So what the man did was completely sidestep the issue. This press conference wasn't about drug policy, wasn't about drug use, it wasn't about drug prohibition, it was about renovations followed by evictions.
That he's cleaning up this neighborhood. He thinks residents in this neighborhood are garbage. So that's a little insight into the true minds of many owners in this neighborhood. They see people as garbage and that they're here to clean it up.
And this person completely sidestepped the issue, took over our press conference, and unfortunately in mainstream press it's probably going to be portrayed, there's probably not going to be the voice of the low-income people at all, unless it's us screaming at him to show us in a bad light.
So people are being kicked out of their homes or being told that they're not allowed to rent in a certain space because they're on welfare, the landlords will call it, then that is discrimination, and that's something that can go to the Decent Human Rights Tribunal.
Do you plan to bring the case at the Human Rights Tribunal?
Today we're focused on the city. We're asking the city to change their law because they could make a very small change in the law that would change the lives of these people forever because it would actually protect these spaces. And then if we have to down the line, if we have to take landlords to the Human Rights Tribunal for kicking people out, refusing to rent utility income assistance, we will do it.
I've noticed during the news conference that lots of emotion, very, very high emotion. Does it surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. This is someone's home. There is nothing more basic that a human being needs than a home. And when people feel like they're being bullied out of their homes, of course they're mad. Of course they're mad. You would be mad too if someone came to your house and said, don't leave your door open or I'll kick you out of your house. You would be mad too if you were scared that you were going to be sleeping outside next month. Of course people are mad.
I pay $700 a month in order for one reason, and that's to keep no gauleiter at my door. I don't have somebody inspecting my friends as they come and go, like that thing. I don't live in a minimum security jail. I pay for it though. I pay through the nose, right? It costs me over $750 a month to live, just me myself, just to pay for my apartment. But the only thing is that I don't have a guard at the door, and that's the premium I pay for being a free person.
Next action, honestly, is we are going to the city fast, and we're going government and the city often. We need them to change this law. And if they don't feel that they have the power to do that, we need them to step in and take a stand. We need them to come here right now, this week, find out who's in the building, find out who's being kicked out, find homes for people and make sure they're safe. That's the next step, and then beyond that, we really have to take a step back and look at what are landlords doing in the neighborhood, and is this a pattern of discrimination against people?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the building just down the street, Affordable Housing Society, where the lowest rent maybe is around $450 a month, and that's for people who might be working like part-time work. I'm just wondering, on low-income assistance, they're pushing the rents up to $600 here in York rooms. Are people going to afford that?
Not. I mean, they're not. Someone on income assistance at $375 a month for rent, who's already paid $425 here, that's $50 worth of their food money. They're just not going to be able to stay. Anyone who says that they are, who says that the building is being cleaned up so that these same people can live there, is lying.
Yeah.
You know, $600 is a reasonable rent for a working person. Someone on disability or income assistance, or who's just getting off the streets and getting themselves set up so that they can have a home for the long term, no, that's a deal breaker.
So what's the next step for anyone who is evicted from this building? Where do they go?
Honestly, for people in this building specifically, we have an interest in representing those people and making sure that they are not being bullied out of the building and that they're not being illegally evicted. They're not being paid out with tiny sums of money that won't last for even a couple of weeks on the street. And we're working with local community advocates to find people secure housing. I mean, at this point, people are, like you heard from Sherman, people are so scared to be here that they feel like it's too late for them. They feel like it's just a matter of time before they're gone too. So we're working, you know, below the radar to just find something for people.
The city is saying that they're building social housing and they're building a mix of housing, and a lot of that is coming on stream, they say. Are people moving out of somewhere like York Rooms, other hotels, and finding that they can get accommodation, or they ended up in shelters?
Well, I know that one person, Wendy has seen one person on the street. I know that other people are struggling to find other SRO spaces, but the social housing that the city is talking about, there's 100 units that they expect may be done in the next year. That's only 100 units, and if you consider how many people are getting moved out of existing SROs, that doesn't take people off the streets. That just barely meets the need of people being pushed out of homes that they already had. After that, over the next 3 years, I think the city is planning on having 300 more units. But again, if there's almost 1,000 people living on the street now, and people being pushed out every day, they're standing on quicksand. There's still nowhere for people to move to.
In an ideal world, what would you hope to see?
In an ideal world, I know that I can't control private ownership. I understand that. What we can do is insist that they respect people's human rights and they don't bully people. But in an ideal world, the city would be taking a really strong stand, either by buying buildings, making better capital investments, or when they talk to owners like this, making them come to the table, making them admit that they are converting these buildings, and making them pay the maximum amount under the bylaw, which right now is $15,000 per room to convert, because they're going to make way more profit than that. They need to pay that amount of money to the city so that the city has more money to make more housing that is safe, where people have kitchens and bathrooms and they can call their place home and feel safe.
You know, I got a little bit teary at the beginning because I feel like this is futile exercise. It's just PR and documentation for historical purposes. It's documentation for the future. People will look back and go, "Oh yeah, all that happened." So I don't know. Futile. Futile is what I feel.